Hello and welcome back to a brand new live session here from Graph UK HQ, and we've got a special
Yes, you
thing.
announced last week that we have got a very special day going on
It
today.
is. Today is World Water Day, which is a UN initiative, and it's always on the 22nd of March. And it's all about raising awareness and inspiring action to help tackle the global water crisis. And obviously, it's the 22nd of March. It just so happened to be on a day we were doing a live session, so we thought, why not steal the show?
I'm pretty sure that you would have found some way to have a live session on this day,
Yeah, it was.
unless it was pitched at the weekend, which would have been a bit more of a commitment, but we would have made it happen, I'm
Yeah,
sure.
it was either it would have been if it was last week. Basically, yes, is the answer. I would have wrangled it away. If it wasn't on the 22nd, or maybe later this week or last week, I would have made sure that we have a day to talk about it. But the good thing is, it is today. Therefore, we can talk about it, and therefore we will discuss it. But first of all, David, how's your week been? How's your weekend?
It's been good. It's been pretty hectic so far this week. Got lots of ongoing projects in the background in terms of work-wise, which is always good to try and develop and look at new initiatives to do things in a better way. So that's good. Very interesting from that sort of front. And yeah, lots of things going on in personal life as well. So yeah, really super. Thank you. How are you?
Very good. This week, I got a care package from Germany, believe it or not.
Oh, really?
Yes, so on Friday, I've got a meeting. It's the international marketing meeting. We've got a load of subsidiaries. We talk about all of our ideas, our plans for this year. And a part of it, they sent basically like a little gift package of all stuff to keep us going throughout the meeting. So it's usual stuff, mug, so you drink, water bottle, pen, paper, but also some snacks. I got a bag of Haribo. They were like, our European sweets are better than UK sweets. They're Haribo, but they're all peach flavored and they're covered in like the Tangfastic sour.
Okay.
So it's sugar, so it looks really nice. And there's like a little energy bar, and but obviously because Germany's kind of located in the Black Forest, they've sent me a cake in a can. It's basically a tin that you peel open. It's got cake in it, and it's a Black
Right.
Forest gâteau cake.
Okay. And they expect it to last until Friday. You're not going to start any of this until Friday.
Yeah. Luckily, I have
Gonna
not touched
stay
anything.
strong.
Yeah, I am testing my willpower not to eat any of it. But I was just like, I was looking at it and I thought, it had a picture on this can. I was like, it looks like a tin of Spam. I was like, it looks like a cake. So then they sent me a picture of what a Black Forest gâteau cake looks like. And I was like, yeah, this is not going to what's be in the can. And the thing is, like, all the paper is a bit like, when like wrappers on paper go a bit white and they
Afraid
go
at the edges.
Yeah, so I'm a bit like, it's been in their drawer for a bit, and they're thinking, oh god, what can we send? But I'm hoping that's not the case.
Everyone's going to have to be on this live stream eating these
Everyone's
fantastic Haribos.
Everyone's going to know what instead of World War Day, they're going to be going about, why is this cake in a can? This is going to be something interesting. But we'll finish our digressing as we usually do and get back to what we'll be discussing in today's session, which is all about World Water Day, raising awareness for it and inspiring action that you can take in order to help solve the water crisis. So we're going to start off by discussing what is World Water Day.
Yeah, I hope you've introduced it quite well there in terms of really its initiative implemented by the greater authorities to us that are trying to raise awareness, of course, of the importance of water and how we can utilize it better, save it, and really be more aware in terms of how precious water is to us on this planet.
Yeah, and I think water is the most precious resource there is. I think there'll become a day where it's more valuable than oil, gold, and other precious resources that there is on this planet. And the worrying thing is, it's a finite resource and it is running out.
Mm-hmm.
But unlike oil and gold, the world does depend on those resources. However, humans, the planet, and life depends on water a whole lot more. And basically, the World Water Day each has a theme each year, and this year's theme is all about accelerating change to help solve the water and sanitation crisis, because it's a part of the 2030 development goals that were first discussed back in 2015. And basically, Sustainable Development Goal number 6 is that everyone in the world should have safely managed water and sanitation by the end of this decade. So by the end of 2023, which shock we're not on track for. And data showed that governments needed to work 4 times quicker on their projects and initiatives in order to meet this goal by 2030. So we're behind on schedule.
Yeah, and the initiative or the plan for these things to be super green, and we're talking about certainly more water is more the focus of today, but the goals that and the deadlines for these things seem really quite extreme. But it's for the good of everyone. That's it. And if these are going to be even feasible, it's not just going to need to be led by one person. It's very much a group effort, a collective, to actually meet these very demanding goals, and really is for the future of the planet. And you just mentioned earlier there that water is very much why we have life existence on this planet. The other things like oil, gold, other precious metals are for convenience and making our lives easier, but they're not a necessity in terms of living our everyday lives. So water really should be at the focus of everyone's minds.
Because how long is it the human body could go without water?
It's like 2-3 days, is it?
That's the maximum, and that's assumed as like actual. You know, you look at the wildlife; they all need to drink it. You look at plants; they all need it for respiration, growing, living, producing oxygen. So water is the most precious resource on the planet.
Yeah.
And this is a very interesting fact, but I wanted to. It pops in my head with wildlife. We're talking about its importance. It's the human body has become, and animals have, through evolution, have sensed how important water is. In the fact that I know with dogs, because puppies can't sit, basically their eyes are closed for the first few days of their birth. They're actually they basically in evolution with dogs, they actually smell water in order to drink it. It's just a natural
ingrained into their DNA. Yeah,
because they can't see it, so they don't know where it is. Obviously, us humans now, as you grow, you know where to get water from, but because they're blind for the first days of their birth, all their life, they actually have to smell water out and find it. And actually, water tastes different to dogs because they know they need it in order to live, and they can't spot it. Bit of a digression. However, as we mentioned, it's such an important resource for life on this earth. Therefore, these sustainable goals of making sure that it is clean water is available to all and everyone by 2030 is quite a difficult goal to reach. Unless, and like you said, we encourage everyone to action. Which leads us quite nicely on to, if you head over to World Water Day, I think it's .org, you see that this year's theme is all about accelerating change to solve the water and sanitation crisis. And they have said that because the governments need to work 4 times faster in order to reach the goal, we need to encourage everyone to do their part in order to meet this goal by 2030, which has led them to create a 10-point action list, which we'll be covering, so you are aware of what those are, so you can do your part to help. We've done some research, we've looked at it.
It's a brief brainstorm on it, yeah.
Yes. So, point number 1 to solving the water crisis is save water.
First thing that comes to mind, hey.
Yes. But these are all about the little things that you can do in and around the home to save water instead of wasting it. And there's a few ones they've shared. So taking short showers, which is a given. Turning the tap off whilst you brush your teeth. Do you do this?
Very much so, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know anyone who leaves it running when they're doing it. And, if you do, we're going to come for you.
Small threat there. Jeez.
Well, it's not a small threat. The world is going to come for you. And there's a couple ones that I found, which I think are really interesting. So, when you pour a glass of water from your tap, do you run your finger under the tap to make it cold, or to see that it's cold before you fill your glass up?
Not usually, no.
Oh, so you just go straight
Well, at my house, I have a combi boiler, so this is probably a bit more in line with what I'm saying. So I have the hot and water coming out the same tap. So there is that little bit of mildly lukewarm water that comes through initially first, which is probably actually not good for me because, of course, that's where the hot water tank comes through, and it's not brilliant. But I suppose if you were been really vigilant, you could think about having like a water jug or filter in your fridge, and you just pour it out into your jug, and then you get it.
So yeah, this is the thing. So if I do it, I will hold my hands up. I do it. So when you basically pour your glass of water when you're having a drink, I've as well got a combi boiler, so it might come out lukewarm, especially if I've done the dishes. It'll come out really hot. So instead of waiting for it to go cold, which is wasting a load of water, fill a glass up, put that in the fridge, and by the time you pour your glass that you actually want to drink, the water is cold.
Or in your kettle or some other vessel, so you can use it later.
Yes, exactly. And that's another good one. The kettle is a lot of people just fill it up straight away and flick it on, even when it's, say, half full. Use as much as possible before you fill it up again and boil it, because you're going to waste energy and waste water doing it.
Yeah, one of my family members has taken this to a whole new level. I shouldn't really say this, but they what they do is they actually boil the kettle full every single time, and then they put that water into a thermos flask.
Interesting.
I mean, that's okay for certain types of like coffee and maybe green tea. It's not great for the standing English mug where you need proper pot boiling water. But for like green tea, where you kind of just you need like a dip of the tea bag to get it going, I reckon it's actually a pretty good idea. But that's like my family's gone energy crazy this moment in time with solar and stuff, and the amount they're trying to do just in relation to energy in general with the prices going up is ridiculous. But I thought that was taking it to a new level.
It's very interesting. A very good tip. The next one is pasta water.
Pasta water?
Yeah, pasta water.
Okay.
So what people usually do is once they cook their pasta, they drain the water. But if they drain it into a separate pan, they can then let it cool down and use it for watering plants around the home. Because of the starch that comes off the pasta when you boil it, actually acts as a fertilizer for plants.
Good tip.
How good of that is a tip?
That's a good tip.
So instead of just putting mains water back onto your plants and wasting that precious water, you can use it for your plants indoors. How cool is that?
That's a good active fertilizer. Yeah,
exactly.
I like it.
That's a very good tip. Right. Write that one down. I'll use that at home.
Okay.
I've got this one plant. It shows you how much lack of knowledge I have about houseplants. I had to take a picture of it and send it to my nan saying, what's this happening to my plants? It's one of these ones that like survive on not that much water, and there's roots apparently there's roots coming off some of the shoots like that were quite high up at the plant. So I was like, yeah, what do I do? She's like, oh, just cut it down and then you can create a new plant. So basically outside my house, I'm going to create a new forest for these plants to see if someone tells me. That is my plan. But anyway, covered a lot of tips there, and that's all about, obviously, action one is saving water as much as possible. So being very much conscious of how much water you're using in and around the home and finding ways that you can reduce how much you're using. Right, tip 2, break taboos. So this one we thought was a bit, didn't know how much to say about this and how much to go detail in it. But from the premise, we believe it's all about being confident to talk about your sewage and your toilets. Obviously, this main thing is about sanitation as well as water supply. So obviously, it's not the nicest subject to talk about, toilets, sewage, and all that sort of stuff. But as a community, we've got to be willing to talk about this a lot more.
Yeah, very much so. It's yeah, there's certain beliefs, of course, that people just generally get from their environment when they're growing up, and you need to have an understanding of how, firstly, what water is created and the energy and the processes that take it to a drinking water standard. And then, of course, once you do use that water and you flush it away, where it goes to and the impacts that can have on the environment. Or if you're in an urban, like city dwelling, the process of where that's being discharged to. If you're in big major cities, there are, of course, very surplus demand in terms of how much water is discharged, which needs to be treated. So there's all sorts of stuff going on behind the scenes. So it really is hopefully creating awareness for people about where their water is going to. It doesn't just magically get flushed away, then come back to pure, ready to go. There's a lot of stuff that needs to happen to it to really make it suitable for human consumption and for other so it's safe for humans to drink. So yeah, when I think about this particular topic, I think it's very much giving people further understanding of the involvement and the developing technology to make the water how precious precious it is to us, and that just we need to be very conscious in terms of how the technology has developed in the last 100 to 150 years, thousands of years. We're very lucky to just be able to turn on a tap and to get water out of it. That's not always the case. So even we're in a very well-developed country, being here in the UK. So we need to realise how great we need to be grateful in terms of how readily accessible water is to us, and to really, when we think about taboos, the way that the water is discharged, and whether you are off mains and it's going into a water network, it's about protecting the environment, and it isn't just flush it and it goes away. It's not your problem anymore. It very much will become your problem if it's not looked after properly. So just be a bit more mindful and think about water on a whole new level.
Yep, that's a very good point that you make. And then the next point is make it equal. So as we've mentioned earlier in today, and the fact that governments must work 4 times faster in order to meet with their initiatives and projects in order to meet the goal, it is very much up to everyone to do their part in order to help solve it. It's not going to come down to one person, because you said it very well in the office earlier. One person can do a bit, but a lot of people can do a lot.
Yeah.
And that's very much what's this third point about, is not only is it us being aware of what we can do, but it's making other people aware and challenging other people to make sure they're doing their part as well.
Yeah, 100%.
The 4th point is flush safe. So this is very much sort of we talk about when it comes to our wastewater treatment systems, but it's also, we've talked about it many times on these live sessions, is the issue that especially UK has with leaking pipeworks.
Yes.
Being very aware of making sure that we can fix all those leaks, and if you do notice anything, fix it as much as possible, even if it is a leaky tap in your home, mainly because even though it might just drip once every couple of seconds, it might not seem that much. After a while, it just builds up. So making sure you fix any leaky taps, pipes in around the home, just make sure you do that. And also they make the point of regular emptying septic tanks. I mean, we've talked about septic tanks and cesspools a lot on this channel, but making sure the regular empty of septic tanks, because as you said before, if you're not emptying them and they overflow, it could be polluting the local area.
Yes, very much.
Then the 5th point is something we cover as well with our wastewater treatment systems. It's all about stop polluting. So being very wary of what you're flushing down your toilet. But we also make the point for septic tanks and treatment plants, don't we?
Yes, very much so. So it's actually quite an extensive list. And when you look at the list, I'm hoping that everyone will raise their eyebrows at some of the things that are on the list. But they're on the list because somewhere someone is putting that particular item down the toilet, and there's another point later where it goes into a bit more detail in terms of being a bit more explicit in terms of things that people put down. But it's of course, before wastewater treatment to take place, it's very much a biological process, and to have things which don't biodegrade going down the toilet is just going to block it up. And of course, there's lots of programs on television in terms of sewer networks getting blocked up with fatbergs and various other wonderful things. So again, it's just been about being really aware of where your water has been discharged to. If it is going to a mains network, that is still something very much for consideration in terms of what you put down the toilets. Try and just keep biodegradable stuff going down that basin, and likewise for sinks. And if you're like washing your boots or your foot boots or something like that, that's going down into the sink, you got all that excess mud. Just try and keep the pipes as clean as possible. We've discussed in the past, very early in this year, in terms of one of the in the news topics that you mentioned in terms of the camera inspections. So there are more innovative ways now of people to repair pipeworks by putting little robots down into the pipeworks to help on repairs and leaks and that sort of stuff to identify where they are. But there's a huge investment in terms of the water authorities to go throughout the miles and miles and miles of pipe work. So we need to really be at source where we're discharging water into these pipes. We need to be really mindful of what's going down there.
Yeah, I mean, you made a good point. It's everyone being very aware of the type of materials they're potentially flushing down the toilet. And the ones they do mention are kind of medicines, oils, chemicals, paint, all that sort of stuff that you obviously don't want to be flushing down the toilet because, even though you may not think about it, but further down kind of the water cycle, it's affecting basically, especially if it goes to watercourses, it's affecting the local environment, which is not going to help with the sanitation of water itself. Then the next point is all about eating local, which is all about buying local and seasonal food, because there's obviously stuff that's out of season, which requires actually a lot of water to produce. And it's also looking out for foods that require a lot of water to produce. I know the main one, I think, is burgers. When it comes to slaughtering cattle, I think that used up a lot of water. But we won't get into the argument of that.
It's actually quite interesting that you bring that point up, because in terms of the manufacturing industry, for things which are made like woolly jumpers, or as you say, in potentially the slaughtering industry for washing down carcasses and all that sort of stuff, there are thousands and thousands of litres used in these manufacturing processes, which people just aren't that mindful of. So it's really an interesting point. I'm glad you brought up in terms of how much water is used in industry. And of course, if that's potentially mains water, that is a huge impact in terms of not only the manufacturing of it, but of course the discharge. And of course, we very much promote the use of rainwater harvesting on this channel. So there is, of course, manufacturing process where rainwater harvesting can help supplement some of that demand. But yeah, just again, raising awareness for how much water we do use as a species. So yeah, I'm glad you brought that up.
Yes. So making sure that obviously eat local, buy local seasonal food, and obviously make sure to check the packaging to see how much water is hopefully being used in the food you eat. Next one is to be curious. So this, you very much talked about it and touched on it earlier, and it's all about finding where your water is coming and going. So kind of understanding your local water cycle. So understand where your water is coming from, its sources, but also where it's going. So is it going down into the sewer network and going to a large sewer treatment works, or is it something more local and you have a septic tank and treatment plant, and understanding that water cycle? So like David said before, you can be conscious of what water you're using and what you're flushing down your toilet by understanding basically the coming and going of your water in and around the home. And one of the next points is all about protecting nature. So this is all about what you can do in order to basically protect nature when it comes to water and water collection, sanitation. So they've mentioned about planting trees because of the ways that, how important water is with kind of nature, as we touched on earlier in this session. And also one of the notes is, can you, they install a rain garden and talking about ways you can actually save and collect rainwater in around the home. We've touched on this channel as well. One of the best ways to actually start is to install a water butt for you to use in and around the home.
Yeah, so I think this point is very much more focused in terms of the plant elements to it. I mean, there's some serious stuff going on around the world. People always stop from their daily lives, and of course think about the big picture when you think about deforestation, all that sort of thing. Really scary stuff. So again, if every single person in the country was to implement some sort of tree or whatever it may be, plantation, this garden in their back garden, or they start growing their own crops in relation to source locally food wise, the impacts it can have is very significant.
Yeah, and then also with that, by planting trees, plants, other kind of stuff, is what it also does in cleaning the soil, which actually comes down to cleaning groundwater and sanitation, because with plants they're taking nutrients such as like nitrates out of the soil in order for them to grow and flourish, which you don't realize but acts as a very important role in cleaning groundwater from the soil. So that's very important to note. Then the penultimate point is building pressure. it's not a pun on water pressure, but very much campaigning to local governments and bodies for improving water quality. We're seeing this very much more in the UK. There's all sorts of new environmental bodies that are campaigning. One that I know is a surfers group. I can't quite remember the name, but they're campaigning for big, large corporations to stop pumping sewage into oceans, because when they surf around the UK beaches, especially down in Cornwall, they find that sewage just throughout the beaches that they're surfing, which is not very nice, but also it's damaging the local environment and ecosystem. And also what we're seeing kind of with nutrient neutrality and water neutrality, there are these governments that are being more aware of improving water quality and sanitation. And then the final one, which you can all do, is clean up, and that's take part in river, lake and waterways cleanup in your local area. There are certain groups, I imagine, in your local area that will be doing this themselves, but if you can take part and join in and do your part to clear up local streams, rivers, lakes, it will help with the greater picture.
Yeah, it's always very disconcerting. I mean, just living out, being very lucky to live in a village for most of my younger life. It's like when you just walk down a local road, exiting the village, and you just randomly see like a McDonald's can, like hedgehog. Like, how on earth did that get there? What inconsiderate so and so is not like throwing that out their car window? I mean, like, goodness me, people need to just
grow up.
Yeah,
grow up and put stuff in it. But also make sure that what you are throwing away doesn't make its way into waterways and polluting the environment.
I mean, there is quite a lot more awareness on this in terms of like recycling plastics, the different types of plastic. So it is very much in the forefront now. We've not just got a general waste bin, we've got general waste, then we've got recycling, and then we've got green waste as well. So with that in very much the forefront of people's minds, hopefully, being more aware of how to dispose of their rubbish is at the more front, and people should start doing it more.
Perfect. So that is the kind of 10-point action list that they have shared of ways that you can all get involved. And I think even if people take 3 or 4 of those actions and do it and incorporate into their day-to-day, we'll start to see a massive improvement in water supply and sanitation. Perfect. Unfortunately, there is no in the news section. We thought, well, because World War Day is very much in the news at the moment, because it is today, and a lot of the stuff we talked about is very much in the news, we've substituted it. But don't worry, it'll be back next week. But now we'll move on to answering any questions that have come in during today's live session. And I think there's a couple. So the first one that's come in is, why is water so important?
Oh, well, I'm hoping that in the question came in right at the beginning of the session. But to quickly recap, very much water is, of course, the whole premise of why we have life on Earth. And we are very lucky to have it. I mean, whenever we look for potentially life on other planets, we very much think, what's the first thing they need? Are we looking for water? So hopefully that brings it into perspective in terms of how precious water is. And really, here, even on Earth, although 80% of the world's surface is covered in water, only a certain percent of it is suitable for drinking. So, the statistics, of course, we cover quite a bit in our CPDs. But people need to be super aware of how precious it is for all human surface life, but also aquatic life as well. So I very much hope that people have taken a couple of things away from today. This certainly one is how important water is in terms of a source on this planet.
Yeah, because you mentioned there with kind of how limited water is. We mentioned in our CPD, I think 70% of the Earth's surface covered in water.
Is it 70?
Yeah. But 2% of that 70 is actually fresh drinking water. And 80% of that 2% is locked up in polar caps and glaciers. So actually 20% of the 2% of the 70% is actually available for us to drink, which when you think about it, is a very tiny percentage.
Yeah.
And for it to be available to 7 billion people around the world, which is increasing to probably near 8 billion soon. It's a scary number to be servicing that amount of people. Perfect. And the next question is, why is it important for people to get involved with World Water Day?
Okay, I think we again covered this quite early on in terms of a collective, in terms of how powerful a group of people can be versus an individual. The importance of getting lots of people involved to have a greater impact is really important. Creating awareness and just doing everyone doing a small amount is a lot better than one person doing a huge amount.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, in terms of creating the awareness, if lots of people are doing a little bit, I think it's going to be more noticeable to the people that aren't doing anything, that there is something going on that they could be doing better. If there's always, I think in most campaigns, or probably not quite the correct word, but whenever we have these, this is the new thing that we need to try and do to help try and save the planet. There's always a small group of people like really pushing for this to happen, which will last a period of time, but they of course will only have a limited amount of energy, and then the next big idea will come along. So for really to have an impact in anything, you need to have a really super big collective of people all doing it a little bit. And of course, if everyone's doing a little bit, that's not taking much out of anyone's life in terms of how much time. I suppose time is the most precious thing for most people that they're having. I mean, if you are going on a local walk and you are going out on a couple of park lanes, and if you just take a rubbish bag with you and just pick up, I don't know, a handful of stuff, that's very small. But that, again, if someone else walking their dog may see you doing that and think, well, they're going out of their way to try and help protect the environment, and that might not spur their thought to do something the same, but it might trigger something for them to do something slightly different, which is again protecting the environment. So really, if everyone did a little bit, in terms of the grand scheme of things, it'd have an immense impact.
Certainly, and we've mentioned this a couple of times, but one person can do a bit, but a lot of people can do a lot.
Yeah.
And the more that people do think about and more conscious of water and their actual usage is important, because they can start to understand a bit more about the issues at hand, and also it raises awareness for other people to get involved. And we will solve this crisis a lot sooner than later, and hopefully hold the government out, because we love doing that, don't we?
Yeah, indeed.
But anyway, that is, I think that's the final question that came in. No, one that's come in is: Do you support any other water environmental charities? Which is a great question. Which we don't at the moment, I would say. But one of the good charities to actually get involved with is one called Charity Water. There's a book about it by the founder of it. I think it's literally called Water. It's got a kind of yellow jerry can pouring water. But that is a very good book if you actually want to get more educated on water usage. But that is a very good charity in terms of what they do around the world, and they do focus a lot on the development of developing the less developed world, shall we say, in terms of installing wells and pumps for those areas of the world that need help with water supply.
Access to clean water.
Yeah, access to clean water. As I think this is a shocking statistic, is about 500 million people don't have access to clean daily drinking water, which means they have to go to they have to walk miles and miles in order to fetch water for themselves, for their family, and most of the time it's not clean, which is very sad to see. But that is one charity that does amazing work with getting involved in helping the more developed world. They're called Charity Water, if you did want to check them out. And it's one charity that we did want to obviously work more with in the future. So I believe that's all the questions that have come in. I think we're going to get a thumbs up from the people behind the computer to make sure. Yep, we have. So David, thanks for your time today.
Thank you. It's been very insightful. Hopefully everyone who's listened has found it worthwhile.
Yes, certainly. And I think it's been a very helpful session to actually encourage people to think about their water usage, what they can do more to save water, and hopefully how to actually clean it as well. Because the more we do about, or the more we think about how much water we're actually using and what we can do to save it, is going to help us all in the long run. So thank you for your time today, and thank you everyone who took part in watching. We'll be back with our regular scheduled programming next week. I think we'll have a stormwater school session, or we might bring you back for wastewater wisdom.
You skipped out on wastewater. I'm devastated.
Well, that's going to stay on my conscience. That really will. Anyway, we'll keep you surprised. It's like stormwater and wastewater. Which one do the people want? We'll see. But anyway, David, thank you for your time today. And thank you one and all for watching. Make sure you come back next week for another live session, and we'll see you in the future.